some deep research agents to go and discover through publicly available information all this. So we've got an historical composition agent swarm, an IT ops model, ITSM ITOM agent swarm, and then a tech ops topology and a regulatory and resilience agent swarm that are all going to go and look for those bits of information so that it can start building the initial service model. So here we have those 4 agent swarms. They'll have numerous amounts of agents that are generated. It may be 3 initially, as we're seeing on the screen, but it could develop as gaps appear in the narrative that it's trying to paint here. And so it's going through all of the different faculties to decide that global payment solutions is going to be the most important business service that they're going to be concerned with at HSBC. So then it starts slowly building out all of the components in the CSDM that it expects to be there based off its research. So it's researching, what kind of hyperscalers does it use? What kind of vendors help it in the delivery? What systems have they publicly said that they subscribe to in terms of enterprise architecture? That sort of thing, right? So it's going to go through and then add that to the model in a very drafted way, obviously, which it's doing right now. It's filling in the service delivery section of the model, which is obviously your service instances, application services, the service offerings for technical side delivery, as well as the infrastructure that is initially going to underpin it. And then it's also given us some foundation data as well with respect to, what kind of usage there is going to be in the infrastructure layer. Cool. Right, so we're done with the research. So let's go have a look at the model, how it's been built. The files here. Cool. So this is the cleaned up version of the research that was just done. And the most important first part of it is it creates a questions pack against all of the elements that are still unknown. So it's done the deep research. It's been able to create inferences between grounded truths, and then it creates some questions out of the assumptions that it made to then be addressed by the customer, not necessarily in a workshop. This can be sent out as a static pack where teams can then come in from the customer side and start answering these questions, and they're all tagged here with some notes. Before we do that, let's just orientate ourselves with what has been done here. So the over-presiding piece of work is the global payment system. So I haven't seen this yet, so I'm just going to check it out. So we have the global payment system. This is a business service that they have, obviously is front and center to their end users and customers. And then there's a service portfolio that it's connected to as well, which is quite useful. So we can see the relationships immediately that it has with the service offerings, which are stratified flavors of that business service. So you can see here straight away, it's regionalized them. So obviously global payments is across the globe, but in different sections of their businesses in different regions, there will be different rules at play. So that's why service offerings get stratified. They get stratified by location. They get stratified by type of end user. They get stratified by quite many things. And in this case, the initial research has been to come up with this. So let's have a look at, is there something UK domestic? So as you click on the next node, it shows the upstream connection, obviously, to the global payments business service, but then it shows its downstream to the application service that it's running on. So this happens to be HSBC Net UK RFB ring-fenced boundary. So obviously there's a ring-fenced boundary position that they have, and that means that it is managed just in the UK in this productive environment. It then has a relationship with a business application, which is monitored and measured from an enterprise architecture perspective against the business capabilities and the business architecture of HSBC. And that's really useful to understand. If we wanted to click on that, we can then see where are all the other productive instances of this particular application, which is called HSBC Net. This is real. It's publicly available information. And we've been able to determine that immediately, that we've got all these at play for the global payment system, that these are very important productive application services that get rendered. We can go into each of them. It gives us some information about the relationships that's there. It's built the canonical relationships that exist from the CSDM version 5. It's connected to the top endpoint for the US application stack. And then it's also married up to basically the team technical management service offering. Different to a service offering in the business sense, is largely about how the delivery team is structured in a unique way to deliver a unique service for that productive environment. So they'll be supporting that. And there would definitely be way more teams than just this, but this is the initial research. And as these questions get answered, then Solo will go ahead, ingest that, and then build the business architecture in the CSDM format. So I think I'll show you that and how that works, to be honest. Let's have a look at all the questions. So you get all the questions on the right-hand side. There's 28 at the moment. I think some of them may or may not have been answered. I don't know. But at this point, you can just go through the most important ones. So we've got ones here about confirm HSBC net. There's one business application in the current CMDB or a regional split, which has been largely built out already, but there's obviously way more information that it could be doing with. And then if we are to answer this and save it, then Solo will immediately start actioning it for us. So we don't need to go into like a meeting or read a questionnaire from a Word document. If there is a questionnaire from a Word document, we can come and attach it here. Otherwise, we can just type in response or use a voice note where it transcribes what we have to say into it. So, but we don't need to do that here. Let's see if there's a better one to answer. Okay, here's a good one. Determine whether GPS or global payment services serve mainland China. The missing JR01 decision. So that's just an abbreviation for some of the decisions that haven't been made in the background. Solo collects these as points of reference for solving some of the problems or the gaps it sees in completing a full service model for this particular service. Why it matters. So this is always important to denigrate why it matters, to not get stuck in the lingo of CSDM. We need to find out why it matters to the business because that really lends to it. Now we can locate where exactly we're talking about by clicking on the locate button. So it's got to do with this business service offering mostly. We can also look at the adjacent pinned entities. So we've got APAC payment services, which is the one that we've actually been put to, and then the HSBC Net Singapore production environment. So obviously Singapore, Hong Kong, APAC, they're all very linked with the areas that were the specific question that we're dealing with. So I'm just going to give it a little answer here. So I'm going to say yes, mainland China. Cool. Shanghai. That's how you spell Shanghai. Save answer. Solo takes the wheel. Let's see if she builds something cohesive. Yeah. So there's a difference here that we actually have a productive environment that is represented here for mainland China. For the global payment system, it's isolated from the Hong Kong, the Singapore, and the APAC region. And therefore, this becomes important because when we're running change management processes or any ITSM process, we need to know the difference. We also need in UpsRes to be able to know when there's something wrong with a regional service account, that which application services is it going to affect. And no doubt, we don't want one AWS hyperscaler going down and then everything is affected. So then what we can do, once we're happy with this, we can import into ServiceNow. Now, Solar has a direct line and feed into ServiceNow. She's an enterprise architect. She's a CSDM expert. She's a solution architect. She's also a ServiceNow developer, and she can build and configure inside ServiceNow. So she's connected through API, through CLI. She does transform maps. She runs scripts directly in ServiceNow, and she can build out this service model into ServiceNow. And then she gives us some cool stuff we can go look at. So let's go look at how this service model shows up in the system. So here's the classic view that I'm sure we're all of those of us who are familiar with the CMDB. This is the CI record for Global Payment Solution as a business service with all of its tree relationships. Then what we can do is go back to the studio, have a look at the blast radius. So now that we've got the service model into the system, it will start connecting and attaching itself to incidents and changes and other ticket items that it had so far been orphaned of. So basically those incidents or those changes or even projects that were running against these services now actually have something to put in that reference, or if there is a CI from an infrastructure layer that's now connected to the abstract, it then shows up. But this becomes really important for blast radius because, for example, if this AWS service were to go down, we can immediately see what the blast radius is, and it doesn't affect, for whatever reason, this part of the global payment solution. So this becomes very effective for a business to be able to see when certain systems go down, what is going to be the damage. And obviously the Middle East program is not going to be damaged as well. And also this particular element over here is not going to be impacted by AWS going down. But if some of these individual items were to go down or be impacted, then we know what the issues are. And the global payment solution then is can be prioritized based on what kind of underlying problems may have come because of that. Let's go back. Then we can look at changes. We can look at digital portfolio management. Let's look at that because this is very cool. Digital portfolio management doesn't work well without a service model in the CSDM. So you can have all the service mapping from a discovery perspective you want. This does not work otherwise. So here we've got the UK domestic payments. This is a stratified version of the global payment solution, and it's a business service offering specific to UK domestic payments. It's got 3 ideas against it at the moment. It's got 0 demands that have been approved. We can then go look at the roadmap from a strategic portfolio management perspective. We can go look at the backlog in terms of approving the ideas into the build phase. We can look at the build phase, what projects are currently underway for this particular item. And the way it collects is that if these projects are all built up around an application service that this is leaning on. So say, for example, we're running a project to upgrade the productive environment. It would show up here automatically without us having to try and connect the dots or put it onto a spreadsheet and try and create these dashboards that we get to look at. We can also look at all the changes that are new against this particular service. It doesn't need to be particularly directed at this UK domestic payments. It just needs to be in its dependency line. So if there are, again, if it's the production application service that's going to be in a change, this would pop up here as well for it so that we could see and look at it. Then we go to the Run tab. So Run tab is basically business as usual in the ITSM world, what's happening in terms of my availability, what critical incidents are open, what outages are underway, and then just be able to generally monitor the health of the service and how it's being given to the customers. And speaking of which, the customers, whenever they get approved to use this service, whether it's getting a laptop or a VDI assigned to them, they end up getting subscribed to the service. So here we've got an initial subscription base that's gone through request fulfillment. They've been approved and the customer has access to UK domestic payments, and there's 51 of them. And this is across 3 companies, 2 locations, 3 individual users, 2 groups, and 1 department. This again helps with the blast radius and the breakdown priority calculations that are all naturally built into ServiceNow, but can't be used unless you have a service model built out. But it connects everything immediately. So if something like that AWS service goes down, we know in terms of what lines within the global payment solution are going to be affected, but then we also know what user base is going to be affected, what kind of user, how many of them, and that really does help us understand what is the most priority of everything that is going on. So yeah, that's a short demo of what Solo can do. I will now stand for any questions. Maybe one last thing worth showing you very quickly is Solo can track how people are answering these questions. So what we normally propose to do is that these get sent out as static files or live on the studio itself to individuals in the organization, and they answer them. And as they answer them, Solo is busy tracking against that in this. Basically, it's a project management dashboard where we can see what's outstanding to complete the service model and who is responsible. So if we go look at the global payment solution, we've got 25% of it complete, but we still have 27 open and 15 that are actually blocking some of the open pieces. And then we can go into the detail of who exactly is responsible to answer those questions. And Solo can, if they're given an email inbox that they're allowed to use within the customer, can email the customer directly to get that information, to prompt them. It can also join team channels where it can harry people along, maybe suggest a workshop that the customer can have internally if they need more than one person to help them with, doesn't matter. But they can go and have those discussions come back to Solo either through a transcript that they've downloaded, some documentation, they can type up their answers, and then Solo will tick this all off and obviously build the service model out. Yeah.